Portal finally got an Iceberg image. If you haven't heard of these, people online have been posting images like this one, which illustrate the depth and obscurity of some topic for years. They use the metaphor of an iceberg to show you how most of the information is below the surface, things most people would never know. Now, if you've seen other videos on my channel, you'll know that I am a huge fan of the Portal games, and I was expecting to be familiar with several of the items on this list. Still, a ton of them were completely new to me. Credit to user itsthebeanguys on the Portal subreddit. This image is massive, containing 330 items, so I'll be splitting it into parts, this first video covering everything at the top of the iceberg. Now, you might think that this means it's only obvious things, but you'll be wrong because there are some surprises here that even fans like myself were not aware of, so if you stick to the end, you might be surprised. Also, obviously, this video will contain spoilers for the Portal and Half-Life games, so without further ado, let's begin. First item is DirectX Portal. Now, I'm already a bit concerned because I thought this was a bit more obscure, yet it's the very first thing on the iceberg. I believe DirectX Portal is referring to how the game looks different depending on which DirectX version you're using. If you have an older graphics card, you can use these special launch options to use DirectX 8 instead of the default DirectX 9. The main difference is the look of the portals themselves, but you'll notice some other differences too. You may notice that these portals look a lot like Portal RTX, and that's because Portal RTX is working off of the DX8 version of Portal rather than 9. Now, "the cake is a lie" is a quote or meme that is heavily associated with the very first Portal game, where the player is promised the cake if they complete the test chambers.
Cake and grief counseling will be available at the conclusion of the test.
You can see in some of the Ratman dens the words "the cake is a lie" is scrawled on the walls. The third item on our list is that GLaDOS may be Chell's mother. Now, this is the first fan theory to show up on the list, and it's also one that I personally disagree with. So, Chell is the name of the player character from Portal 1 and 2, and the theory is suggesting that GLaDOS may be the player character's mother. So, in Portal 2, we find out that GLaDOS was created by scanning the mind of Caroline, the assistant to Aperture's founder Cav Johnson, so it's suggesting that Caroline was also Chell's mother. And I think the main evidence for this claim is the song that GLaDOS sings at the end of Portal 2. If you translate it from Italian, the song is addressing the listener as their daughter, instructing them to go far away from science. This is definitely referring to how GLaDOS is letting Chell leave Aperture at the end of the game and asking her not to come back. So why do I disagree with the theory? Well, it's because this is the first and only hint in the entire 2 games that Chell and GLaDOS might have any kind of familial relationship, and I don't think it's enough to say that they are related. It could just be a metaphor. Maybe I'm wrong, but I disagree. Entry number 4, Aperture is in Upper Michigan and Cleveland, Ohio. Now, if you play Portal 2 and you're looking closely, you can find this newspaper, and it's implying that the game is taking place in some kind of facility in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. However, it's possible that Valve didn't always intend for this to be Aperture's location. In Half-Life 2 Episode 2, there are some blueprints you can see for a ship called the Borealis, which was constructed by Aperture for research purposes. On those blueprints, we can see that Aperture has at least one building in Cleveland, Ohio. Number 5, Portal and Half-Life share a universe. Like we hinted at in the last item, these 2 franchises seem to share a continuity. Both of the Portal games make several references to Black Mesa, the location of the first Half-Life game. Half-Life 2 Episode 2 mentions Aperture Science by name, and the dry dock for the Borealis can be seen in Portal 2. So yes, they are definitely in a shared universe. Number 6, GLaDOS was Caroline. Yep, we already covered this one. Portal 2 very clearly tells us that GLaDOS was created by scanning Caroline's mind. Number 7, Portal 2 Co-op. There is a cooperative mode that lets you play the game with a friend. It's lots of fun, has lots of new mechanics and different puzzles you haven't really seen before. It's a fantastic way to spend time with friends. Alright, number 8, Adrian, Shephard, Portal Gun, and Keyboard Easter Egg. This one could be a little obscure if you're not so familiar with the Half-Life games, but Adrian Shephard is the protagonist of the expansion pack for Half-Life 1 named Opposing Force. Since it came out, many people have been hoping this character would make a return in a future game. Portal contains 1, possibly 2 references to this character. This keyboard seen in the offices has the letters ERIPAS D, H, and N in the yellow, while the rest are in black. These are the letters needed to spell out Adrian Shephard's name. In addition, some people think they see his name in the abbreviation for the portal gun, Aperture Science Handheld Portal Device, or ASHPD. Some people think they see Adrian Shephard in there. Number 9. The cake is real. If you played Portal to completion, there is a brief cutscene at the very end that shows the cake was real all along. There is also an unused GLaDOS voice line where she says,
"There really was a cake."
Number 10. You are not breathing real air. About a quarter of the way into Portal 2, GLaDOS explains that it's too expensive to pump real air this far underground.
Here's an interesting fact. You're not breathing real air. It's too expensive to pump this far down. We just take carbon dioxide out of a room, freshen it up a little, and pump it back in. So you'll be breathing the same room full of air for the rest of your life. I thought that was interesting.
Mantis Men. In the old Aperture section of Portal 2, we learn about several failed experiments from that time period. One of them was to inject humans with praying mantis DNA to see what happens. Oracle Turret Foreshadowing. There's a turret at the very first act of Portal 2 that many call the Oracle Turret because its cryptic dialogue predicts later events in the game.
Get mad. Don't make lemonade.
This is a quote that Cav Johnson says later in the game.
Prometheus was punished by the gods for giving the gift of knowledge to man. He was cast into the bowels of the earth and pecked by birds.
This one is referring to how GLaDOS is turned into a potato and then thrown into the depths of the facility and tormented by birds.
The answer is beneath us. Her name is Caroline.
Finally, the Oracle Turret hints at the huge discovery buried underneath Aperture, that GLaDOS is Caroline. Number 13, Borealis Easter Egg. The dry dock for the Borealis, the ship mentioned in Half-Life 2 Episode 2, can be found in the 1970s section of Old Aperture, along with a single life ring. Wheatley in TF2. I think this one's referring to how a tool based on Wheatley can be found in Team Fortress 2. It's called the App Sap, and the spy can use it to sap things built by the engineer, such as teleporters. 15. Wheatley Crab. During the development of Portal 2, there were some questions about how Wheatley would get around. In the final game, he simply uses a rail or is carried by the player. But in the beta, they considered giving him legs, which led to this design. 16. The cores are corrupted. In Portal 2, we learn that the personality core in command of the building is able to become corrupted. When this happens, another core should take its place. That lets the player replace GLaDOS with Wheatley, but at the end of the game, several corrupted cores are attached to Wheatley, so he becomes corrupted, allowing GLaDOS to be reinstalled. Number 17, the Oracle Turret. This is one of the first items that I don't have much to say about because we've already discussed it. The Oracle Turret is that same turret from before, which tells you about the future. Number 18, there is the theory that Caroline was married to Cav Johnson. This is another theory that I disagree with. It seems like there's lots of people who just want to connect dots and build backstories where none actually exist. It's possible that Caroline and Cav Johnson did have some kind of romantic relationship, but I don't see any actual evidence for it. The best you could do is the lack of a last name for Caroline and for Chell, which you might say is an effort to hide a common family name, that being Johnson perhaps. But I don't think it adds much to the story either way, and there are much better ways to hide a common last name if they were trying to do that. I think if we were supposed to believe that Caroline, Chell, and or Cav Johnson were related in some way, there would have been some more direct evidence for it. Ratman dens. In both Portal 1 and Portal 2, you can find several dens where someone was hiding out inside the walls. This character is further explored by the tie-in comic called Lab Rat, where we learn his name is Doug Ratman, and he was one of the scientists who created GLaDOS in the first place. He also ensured Chell's stasis pod continued working so she could survive into Portal 2. 20. Portal 2 PETI stands for the Perpetual Testing Initiative, and it's an in-universe term for the Steam Workshop, which is the way that community-made maps can end up in your game. There's some lore to go along with it. In some parallel universe, Cav Johnson has discovered the multiverse and is using it to save money. His plan is to trick alternate versions of Aperture into building test chambers for him, and then he sends you, the player, to make sure these test chambers were built correctly before he steals them back to his own universe. I know, it's kind of convoluted, but it's fun. As you complete the test chambers, you might hear jokes and dialogue about the different universes you're exploring, including but not limited to a world where everyone has the same birthday, a world where Aperture bought Black Mesa, a universe where employees are being replaced with communist replicas, and a universe where everyone must always dance, a universe where everyone was transformed into pure light, but was actually trying to become pillars of salt, and at least 2 universes made of money. Number 21, Narbacular Drop. Portal was originally a project by a team of students at the DigiPen Institute of Technology. They were called Nuclear Monkey Software, and the game was called Narbacular Drop. They encountered some Valve employees at a job fair and got a chance to demo their game at the company headquarters in front of Gabe Newell, who hired them all on the spot. 22. Super 8 Interactive Teaser. At about the time Portal 2 was released, Valve was talking with J.J. Abrams about making movies based on their games. This led to an interactive teaser for Abrams' upcoming movie Super 8 being included in Portal 2. Number 23. Party Escort Bot New Ending. If you played Portal before and after Portal 2's release, you might have noticed a change to the game's ending. While originally the game faded to black after you wake up in the parking lot, the ending was changed so that a party escort bot would drag you back inside the building. This was done so that the same player character would be inside Aperture for the next game. Number 24. Portal Betas. Portal went through several different aesthetics during its development. These betas explored several concepts that didn't make it into the final game, some of which appear later in the Iceberg. Some betas reused assets from Half-Life 2, especially the Nova Prospect sections. There were also many different concepts for the game's ending, including one that left the player stranded in Zen, the alternate universe from Half-Life. 25. Aperture Fixtures. Some details hidden in Portal 2 explain that Aperture Science was originally called Aperture Fixtures, and their company was making shower curtains for the US military. Number 26, Exile Vilify is a song that can be heard in one of the Ratman dens in Portal 2. The indie rock band The National and their publishing label approached Valve about including a song in their upcoming game, and Valve agreed that their music fit the tone of Portal 2 very well. It was originally intended for one of several fake endings planned in Portal 2. It went on to be nominated for Best Song in a Game for the 2011 Spike Video Game Awards. Number 27, Peabody Cameo. If you zoom in during this very specific part of Portal 2 as Wheatley is adding an exit to this test chamber, you can see Peabody, one of the 2 player characters from the co-op mode. Number 28. One of the chapters of Portal 2's co-op mode revolves around finding and opening a vault full of humans stored in stasis so that GLaDOS can use them in more tests. 29. Aperture Desk Job is a free game released on Steam intended to show off the capabilities of the Steam Deck. In this game, the player helps a personality core to modify a toilet into a turret. This is likely a reference to the toilet seen in the beginning of Portal 1, as interacting with this toilet makes it speak in the voice of a turret.
Your business is appreciated.
30. Wheatley's Epilogue. After the credits song in Portal 2, there is one last cutscene with Wheatley, in which he expresses regret for his actions in the game and says that if he ever saw the player again, he would apologize. 31. Cube respawning mechanic as a puzzle-solving tool. In most levels that involve cubes, destroying it will cause a new one to be dispensed. However, activating the dispenser when the cube is still present will destroy your original cube. This is done to keep the player from getting more cubes than intended. However, it can also be used to solve a puzzle remotely by destroying a cube that was holding down a button. You can see this a lot in fan-made levels. There's a link in the description to a video that explains this particular mechanic in more detail. 32. Portal 1 and 2 trailers. Since this is the top layer of the iceberg, we will have some entries that are just something that every fan should know about, including the trailers for both games. The creator of this iceberg told me that Portal 2's trailer was included because it's especially iconic. 33. The 3 portal gun rules. I think this is referring to the 3 rules given by GLaDOS when you first obtain the portal gun.
Do not touch the operational end of the device. Do not look directly at the operational end of the device. Do not submerge the device in liquid, even partially.
There's also a 4th rule that is cut off.
Most importantly, under no circumstances should
Well, that's the first level down, so if you like this video, please give it a like, please give a comment for ideas and questions you might have that I should cover in the next video. In the meantime, you can find me on live streams on both YouTube and Twitch, and you can also find my Discord server in the link down below. Thanks and have a great day.